What's up, everybody? Today, I want to review One Piece World Seeker. Yes, I finally beat One Piece World Seeker and all of the DLC, and I thought, why not come on here on More Fanime and give you guys my honest thoughts on the game as a whole. I got the game at a decent discount. They seem to like to put these anime games on discount on the online store on a lot. Yeah. So I usually, if it's an older anime game like World Seeker is, it's only a few years at this point. I think it came out in 2019, maybe 2020. I think it was 2019 because I think Pirate Warriors 4 came out in 2020. But I have to say, right off the bat, I enjoyed the whole heck out of this game. Honestly, it had a few faults, and I'll go over that, but I really liked One Piece World Seeker. Would I recommend it to somebody who was not a One Piece fan in any way, shape, or form? No! Why would you play a One Piece game if you're not a fan of One Piece? I do think there are other games that have the same idea that that World Seeker was going with, like the gameplay aspect, that have done it better. But as a One Piece story, original story, just for this game, not a rehash of an arc that we've all seen a million times. No! This was its own movie. I really felt like I was inside and in control of a One Piece movie. And I think this game was just missing a few little nitpicks that could have made it a 10 out of 10. Honestly, I mean, I have a lot of bias because I really love One Piece. So if you're a huge One Piece fan, you are going to love this. If you've watched every One Piece movie, if you have seen them all and enjoyed them all, or at least the last 4 or 5, you're going to love this game because it has the same tones as a One Piece movie. It really was exciting. I was excited to see what was going to happen next, who was going to show up. It kind of had that Stampede vibes, where a whole bunch of ex-villains and other pirates that the One Piece crew has met along the line show up and have little cameos and a little bit of a fight here and there. If you're just judging it on the story alone, it's fantastic. I'd give this an 8.5 out of 10 story-wise as a One Piece game because it felt like a One Piece story. I'm not sure if Oda had any connection to the writing of this game, but I think it gave off an aura of most of his recent movies. It was fantastic. It had an antagonist. It had a deep, sad backstory for this new island they go to, which I can't remember its name, but above this island is a sky island, and there's a prison on this island, so it's another prison island. So Impel Down is not the only prison. This is one here. I know there's another one in the story. I can't remember. But this is another one of those. And above them is a sky island. It's pretty cray-cray. I believe there's a prison in the sky as well. The main villain of this, the antagonist, is Isaac. Isaac is the main antagonist of One Piece World Seeker. He is the prison warden on the world government-affiliated jail island and a scientist who serves as the island's highest-ranking Marine. He is also our main character's brother. The main character's name is Janine. Janine is a resident of this jail island. Is it just called a jail island? Please comment down below, let me know. Being the leader of an anti-Marine faction opposing the Marines' occupation of this island. She is the daughter of the former leader of the island, as well as the younger sister of Isaac, our main antagonist, who was once the warden of the island and the highest-ranking Marine occupying it. So all these things are facts about the story's main characters. You have a brother-sister conflict happening here. The brother and the sister have different ways of handling their stress and problems. And the brother decided to go all Tony Stark on us in this game when he goes straight up Iron Man and builds a bunch of crazy Iron Man-like suits. And he wears one in particular that makes him strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Luffy in Gear 4. So it's some good technology. I like the fact that it's a different world. Up until the current storyline in the manga right now, where the crew is at Egghead Island with actual robots and cyborgs and whatnot, this is the first taste of that. So if you're kinda into what's going on at Egghead Island currently in the manga, and you haven't given World Seeker a shot, I highly recommend it. Isaac, our main villain, is vindictive and a serious man who sought revenge against the world government for attempts in trying to claim his home island to harvest Dynastones. Dynastones, the same thing that were in One Piece Film Z that Zed was trying to use to destroy the Grand Line, or the New World, I believe. So they're still using the Dynastones, and apparently the Dynastones came from this island, which also they turned into a jail. Kind of a bad decision there, because if there are Dynastones still on this island and you're imprisoning people there, is that supposed to be like a threat? Because what if one of them get out? What if one of them happen to find a Dynastone, introduce it to oxygen, and blow up the whole island? They're pretty strong. Just one of those blew up a small island in One Piece Film Z. So, not the smartest move by the Marines. Maybe they were thinking, well, if it happens, they all die. If all those prisoners die, kind of just an accident. That's my only thought there. This guy, Isaac, he's not that bad of a guy. And later in the game, he does get a little bit of redemption. Yes, he wants revenge for the death of his mother, who used to run this island because the government is pieces of shiz and all they wanted was these nuclear Dynastone type weapons. Yes, he became a Marine, became the warden of this very jail that's caused so much conflict on his island, splitting the island into factions. Anti-Marines, which Janine is a part of, but she also just wants peace between all factions, and then Marine positive people, kind of like our real world. You have the government and the non-government people fighting, and they're just going, hey, less government. And the other one's like, no, more government because of those stinking pirates. If only they knew Luffy, an actual pirate, was gonna save the day once again. And I think a lot of people just need to realize that all pirates are built the same. Luffy and his crew show up. They meet Janine. One of my only issues with this game, seriously, was seeing the fact that you can only play as Luffy throughout the main game, and the only way you can play as 3 other characters in a massive One Piece game is just Zoro, Sabo, and Law. And those are great choices. I'm not against it. I honestly would have preferred if they threw in a Nico Robin in there to really give us a surprise in the DLC, give us some female action as well. Even like a team, maybe like a Nico Robin Usopp storyline. That's what I really enjoyed about this game more than the actual combat, which does get really fun once you've unlocked all the abilities. At the beginning of the game, you're kind of slogged down. You're Luffy at nerfed Luffy with almost no attacks. You might have a gum pistol, but you're essentially Luffy from the beginning of the story, even though you are New World Luffy. You are the Luffy who can already go into Gear 4, yet they nerf Luffy down to, make the game last longer? Maybe they just should have made the enemies more dangerous at the beginning, giving Luffy more abilities at the beginning. I think the beginning of the game, the first quarter, maybe less, first 15% or so, building up your Luffy to be able to actually do Gum fun attacks and whatnot, and Gum rocket across the map and fly with the Gum UFO and stretch your arms and do like a Spider-Man type launch into the air. The only way you can do that is by completing missions. So the first few missions are very difficult to complete, and you kind of feel like your character's wearing weighted clothes. But once you've unlocked all these abilities, Luffy actually can compete with the computers, the boss fights and whatnot. He's able to do his thing. He can do his Straw Hat main character thing, but until then, it is a bit of a slog. It does feel a little heavy, but eventually, once you get those shackles unlocked and Luffy's at full force, you are gonna have a great time with the combat here. But like I was saying, the story is what really drew me in. That's what was my favorite part. The combat, maybe a 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10 once you've unlocked everything. I don't like the idea that for the first part of the game, you're really not having a great time without unlocking all those abilities. I tried to beat the game all on hard mode, and I made it all the way to the end. Couldn't do it. Had to go down to normal, but still did pretty good. If I replay this game again, honestly, I might just play on easy and just enjoy the story because the story was fun. I feel like I skipped a lot of the story just to get to the next part because I'd had to restart so many battles on hard, and it takes so long to level up because you can't just level up. You can't just run around and beat up nobodies and get experience points. They are so stingy in this game with experience points. Basically, the best way to unlock experience points is doing side missions and the actual story missions, and eventually it'll get you to the level you need to beat that enemy. And it is fun to beat it on hard mode, but I would honestly never do that again. And I really felt it in the DLC. The DLC was fantastic, though. Playing as Zoro was so exciting. It's one of the things that really bugged me about the main game. The idea that you can't play as Zoro in the main game in any way, shape, or form. You're a crew. If you're gonna do this, if you're gonna have a movie-like video game scenario, you should allow us to play as at least Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, minimum. Maybe throw in a wild card like Frankie. Give Frankie a little bit of a side story. Every one of the Straw Hats do have a little bit of a side story with Luffy throughout this storyline, but they're really just side missions, like collecting ingredients for Sanji, for example, or materials for Frankie and Usopp to build shit. That's really it. Zoro's off on his own doing his own storyline, which is in the DLC, which feels like it should have just been in the normal game. If it cut between playing as Luffy and Zoro throughout the entire game, like maybe every hour or two you get to play as Zoro for an hour, and then you keep swapping back and forth or checking in on the other members of the crew and their own little side stories, even teaming some up, because I get it, some of them can't handle or can't carry their own story, even though I think they can. I do believe they could have literally done every member of the crew, not including Jinbei, because Jinbei's not in this game because it was made before Jinbei was an official Straw Hat thing. But the current members of the crew, the 9, main OGs, you get them. I'll give them all a story. I would have paired up maybe Frankie and Robin, or Usopp and Frankie, maybe Chopper and Nami could have like a little story together where, you got, well, they're both kind of ranged characters. Maybe the ranged characters would be the support characters for the ones that do the fisticuffs. So maybe Frankie would be the character you actually control, but you're running around with Nami. How often do you get to see Nami and Frankie interact like that? That would have been a fun time. The cutscenes are beautiful in this game, by the way. The game is gorgeous as well. You're having a good time. You do feel like Luffy. You do feel like Zoro. You do feel like Law in this game when you play the DLC. Law was a huge excitement, using his Opie Nomi to teleport all around and steal people's hearts and whatnot, and he was fun. You could teleport throughout the game instead of stretch, which was pretty cool. Zoro, he doesn't have the ability to stretch and or teleport, but he has this, I didn't really like this, but he could just like bounce up a building. I think it would have been even cooler if he could just leap to the top of the building without having to do this little jump thing. He should have just had the ability. I know in the current storyline, Zoro can jump basically to a building's height. I'm sure of it. They should have done a thing where he could do a super jump and get to a high elevation, not just these little jip, 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 jip. But they needed something to make it so all the characters can get to the tops of the buildings to collect all the special items. I did not go and collect all the special items. There's an equipment factor to this game where you equipped items that changes your levels and whatnot, and didn't really use any of it. It wasn't really necessary. They gave Frankie and Usopp the job of making equipment for you, which it didn't come into play really for me, and I played on a pretty hard difficulty. I also did with the Zoro storyline, but once I got to Sabo's storyline, shit got a little repetitive. Sabo felt a lot like a flaming version of Luffy. He would, instead of stretch, he would just shoot a fire, and he would shoot a fire hand of sorts, he would just fly. Yeah, he would just fly as fire because he's a Logia, which is fine, but his fighting style, everything just felt like a version of Luffy that I didn't care about. His story was kind of boring. I think he went toe-to-toe with Rob Lucci at the end of his story. Nothing too consequential. Is that the word? Zoro's story was fun. He actually had a plot that actually connected to the main storyline, where he went toe-to-toe with the greatest, Tony Stark suit that the main character Isaac created. Basically his number 2, which was essentially just an entire robot that had some form of sentience. And he kind of started a rivalry with this robot, and they had a battle where he could copy or learn Zoro's movements or some shiz. It was okay. I could see that being in a One Piece movie where Zoro respects this inanimate robot thing, and they kind of have this rivalry throughout the backstory of the movie. I just really didn't like the idea that you only can play as Luffy during the main plot. And even if you're not going to put the effort in and put the rest of the crew members as playable, I cannot wait for One Piece Odyssey because they're all playable. If you're not going to do that, at the very least, include every member of the crew as side characters that can follow Luffy and back him up in battle. And that happened one time in this game that I can remember. Luffy was in the middle of a fight at the very end of the game, and Kuzan, of all people, shows up. Aokiji shows up and says, "I'll help you with this one, Straw Hat." And then he starts backing me up. He starts teaming up with Luffy. And I'm like, this is what you should have done with every member of the crew. Don't even worry about including Kuzan. You can include him into the story, but he doesn't need to be part of this battle with Luffy. His crew needs to be part of this. You need to see Zoro and Luffy teaming up in cutscenes and whatnot, having a good old time. You need to see him and Sanji going at it. Not like physically, but teaming up on villains and whatnot. Maybe he has a side story with every one of them, and sometimes, he might have a conflict with Frankie. They might have an argument. It might be like a sad thing that connects to their real backstories. It would be something fun, some kind of like a gift to the true fans of One Piece that know every detail. Something you don't have to do, but if you do it, you can unlock more experience points and whatnot. That's what they should have done. And then at the end of the game, at the very end of the game, they actually do this where Luffy's trying to get to the sky ship to stop the Dinostones from exploding or some shiz, and the whole crew backs him up in the cutscene, attacking robots that are in the way of Luffy shooting himself up there. And I thought they should have done that throughout the entire game. That's just my opinion. The more I think about it, the more I get a little more frustrated at the fact that Luffy was the only controlled character. But he's the main protagonist. It's fine. I think that this game had a lot of potential to be the Kakarot, if you've played the Dragon Ball game Kakarot, of the One Piece franchise, in a way, without actually doing the main story. I think this is what they should do with One Piece games. You shouldn't have to, there's no way in hell you'll ever fit the entire One Piece story into one video game. I don't think so, unless it's like a Game Boy game with a tiny little graphic card and whatnot. I don't know. No, it just would not work. It's not gonna work. You gotta do these little side stories, little movies of sorts. That's the way to make a good One Piece game. But all in all, I did enjoy my time with One Piece World Seeker. My suggestion, honestly, beat it on easy and just enjoy the story. That's what I would do if I could redo my first experience with it, because I do feel like I missed some major story beats that I kind of skipped by just to get to the next big cutscene. And just them jabbering, I might have taken more time watching and reading those little dialogue boxes. Also, it's not English voice acted, so if you are an English dub only, you're not going to have a good time. I usually only watch English dub. I don't care. I think it's amazing. Some people hate it. I think it's great. I think Christopher Sabat and the whole crew do such a good job making the English dub. And I think they would have done an amazing job dubbing over this game, World Seeker. I do think at some point they should. I mean, One Piece is taking over New York for One Piece Film Red. It's time. It's time to do an English dub One Piece video game with an amazing story, kind of like the current movies that are happening right now. They could have literally made One Piece Film Red into a video game. Take those storylines from these games and these movies, and make those into games. Those kind of things. Things you can replay over and over again. They don't feel like you're repeating the story, even though the story of One Piece is amazing. The only way you can actually do the entire story in a really good game with amazing graphics would be to chunk it into pieces. So they'd have to do like One Piece East Blue or One Piece Alabasta, and just only go up to the end or Alabasta. One Piece Marineford, and then go from Skypiea through Marineford. And then you do One Piece Whole Cake Island and do the beginning of the New World through Whole Cake Island. That's the only thing I could think of, really. And then you start again with Wano and whatnot, and Zoe. That's really all you could do, but I just don't think there's a purpose. You can't fit it all. You can't fit it all into one box. One Piece is just too enormous. The only thing I think that the One Piece fans ask for future video games is to be able to play as the entire crew, which is happening in One Piece Odyssey, and I cannot wait to get that game. That game looks fan-freaking-tastic. Turn-based strategy, everything One Piece can and will be going forward. I hope. Please buy One Piece Odyssey, because if it does get high numbers and it sells so well, they might give us an English dub next time. They might make more One Piece games. The reason they're not making enough One Piece games to feed us fans is because we're not buying them, and I think a lot of fans from America that are fans of the English dub aren't buying the games, because I wasn't at first. I'm a fan of both dubs, so I didn't care. I was just like, I'm just going to enjoy this. And they're so well voice acted regardless. You're going to have a good time. This is More Fanime. What did you think of One Piece World Seeker? I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it to anybody who's been avoiding it because of the bad reviews it got, because I do believe it's fantastic. If you're a huge Luffy fan, if Luffy's your favorite character and he's mine, you're going to have a good time. And like I said, Zoro, Law, both get amazing little side DLC stories. The game's always on sale. Get the game. Thank me in the comments. Share this video. Subscribe to More Fanime. I'll talk to you later.